The vast expanse of space had long captivated humanity's imagination, but nothing could have prepared them for the day when the stars finally answered back. It was a crisp autumn morning when the first alien transmission reached Earth, sending ripples of excitement and trepidation across the globe. Dr. Lyra Chen, lead xenolinguist at the SETI Institute, had spent countless sleepless nights decoding the message. Her dark eyes sparkled with a mix of exhaustion and exhilaration as she burst into the control room, waving a datapad wildly. "We've done it," she exclaimed, her voice trembling with excitement. "We've deciphered their language." The room erupted in cheers as Lyra's colleagues gathered around her, eager to see the fruits of their labor. As the team pored over the translation, a hush fell over the room. The message was an invitation. The aliens, who called themselves the Zirconian Collective, wanted to meet. Within weeks, world leaders had convened an emergency summit to discuss humanity's response. After heated debates and careful deliberation, a decision was reached. Earth would send a delegation to meet the Zirconians at a neutral location in deep space. Captain Marcus Rees stood at attention as he was briefed on his mission. A decorated veteran of the Global Space Force, Rees had been handpicked to lead the first contact team. His weathered face betrayed no emotion as he absorbed the gravity of the task before him. "Captain Rees," Admiral Yuki Tanaka began, her stern gaze fixed upon him. "You understand the importance of this mission. The fate of humanity rests on your shoulders." Rees nodded sullenly. "I won't let you down, Admiral. We'll make first contact and ensure the safety of Earth." As the gleaming Starship Horizon prepared for launch, a crowd of thousands gathered to witness history in the making. Dr. Chen, now part of the first contact team, felt a mix of anticipation and nervousness as she boarded the vessel. This was the moment she had dreamed of her entire life, the chance to communicate with an alien species face to face. The journey to the rendezvous point took several weeks, during which the crew of the Horizon trained relentlessly. They ran countless simulations, preparing for every possible scenario they could imagine. Yet, as they approached their destination, a sense of uncertainty lingered in the air. Captain Reeves stood on the bridge, his eyes fixed on the viewscreen as a massive alien vessel shimmered into existence before them. The Zirconian ship was a marvel of engineering, its sleek design unlike anything humanity had ever seen. "Open a channel," Reeves ordered, his voice steady despite the tension in the air. Dr. Chen stepped forward, clearing her throat before speaking the carefully practiced greeting in the Zirconian language. For a moment, there was only silence. Then, a response came, and a holographic image flickered to life on the bridge. The Zirconians were a sight to behold. Tall, graceful beings with iridescent skin and elongated limbs, they exuded an aura of advanced intelligence. Their spokesperson, who introduced himself as Ambassador Zalfor, bowed slightly in greeting. "Welcome, children of Earth," Zalfor's melodious voice echoed through the bridge. "We have long awaited this moment." As the initial pleasantries were exchanged, Dr. Chen couldn't shake a nagging feeling in the back of her mind. Something about the Zirconians' body language seemed off, but she pushed the thought aside, chalking it up to the natural difficulties of interspecies communication. Over the next few days, the human delegation engaged in a series of talks with the Zirconians. They shared knowledge of their respective cultures, discussed potential trade agreements, and even broached the subject of a military alliance. The Zirconians seemed eager to welcome humanity into the galactic community, offering advanced technology and the promise of protection from other, less friendly alien races. Captain Rees, however, remained cautious. Years of military experience had honed his instincts, and something about the situation didn't sit right with him. He confided his concerns to Dr. Chen one evening as they shared a meal in the ship's mess hall. "Don't you think it's all a bit convenient?" Reeves asked, his voice low. "They're offering us everything we could want on a silver platter. What's the catch?" Chen frowned, considering his words. "I understand your caution, Captain, but isn't this what we hoped for? A peaceful first contact, the chance to advance our civilization by centuries. Reeves shook his head. In my experience, if something seems too good to be true, it usually is. As the negotiations progressed, the Zarkonians invited a small group from the horizon to tour their vessel. Captain Reeves selected a team, including himself and Dr. Chen, to accept the invitation. As they boarded the alien ship, Reeves couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into a trap. The interior of the Zarkonian vessel was a marvel of biomechanical engineering. Living metal pulsed with energy, and holographic displays flickered to life as they passed. Ambassador Zalthor led them through winding corridors, explaining the ship's various functions with pride. It was during this tour that Dr. Chen's linguistic expertise picked up on something alarming. As they passed a group of Zarkonian crew members, she overheard a snippet of conversation that made her blood run cold. The translation matrix in her earpiece struggled with a complex dialect, but the meaning was clear enough. The humans suspect nothing. Soon, their world will be ours. Chen's heart raced as she tried to catch Captain Ree's eye, but before she could signal him, Ambassador Zalthor ushered them into what appeared to be the ship's command center. The room was dominated by a massive holographic display of the Milky Way galaxy. And now, Zalthor announced, his voice taking on a sinister edge, we will show you the true might of the Zarkonian collective. With a wave of his hand, the galaxy map zoomed in on Earth's solar system. Reeves watched in horror as thousands of red dots appeared, representing a massive invasion fleet hiding just beyond the edge of human sensor range. Did you really think we would share our power with such a primitive species? Zalthor sneered. Your world will make an excellent addition to our empire. In that moment, all pretense of diplomacy vanished. Captain Reeves reacted with lightning speed, drawing his sidearm and shouting to his team, "It's a trap. Fall back." Chaos erupted in the command center as the humans fought their way back towards the airlock where their shuttle was docked. Dr. Chen found herself in the thick of the action, her years of self-defense training finally put to the test as she grappled with a Zarkonian guard. Reeves' military prowess shone as he coordinated their retreat, covering his team's escape with precision shots from his energy pistol. But the Zarkonians' superior technology was overwhelming, and it seemed like only a matter of time before they would be overwhelmed. Just as hope began to fade, a young ensign named Jack Torres made a bold move. Noticing a panel that seemed to control the ship's internal defenses, he dove towards it, smashing his fist against what he hoped was an emergency shutdown. To everyone's surprise, the gambit worked. The Zarkonian weapons and shields flickered and died, giving the humans the opening they needed. With renewed vigor, the team fought their way back to the shuttle. As they raced back to the horizon, Reeves opened a channel to Admiral Tanaka back on Earth. "Admiral, we've been betrayed," he reported, his voice grim. "The Zarkonians are hostile. They have an invasion fleet ready to strike. We need to prepare for war." As the horizon sped away from the Zarkonian vessel, narrowly evading their attempts to recapture the humans, the weight of their discovery settled over the crew. They had journeyed into space seeking friendship and knowledge, only to find treachery and the threat of annihilation. But as Captain Reeves looked around at his crew, at Dr. Chen's determined face, at young Torres' newfound confidence, at the resolve in the eyes of every man and woman on board, he felt a glimmer of hope. Humanity had been caught off guard, but they would not go down without a fight. As the horizon raced back towards Earth, pushing its engines to the limit, Reeves began to formulate a plan. The Zarkonians may have had the advantage of advanced technology, but humans had something they lacked, the indomitable spirit that had carried them from the caves to the stars. "Send word to every nation on Earth," Reeves ordered, his voice ringing with determination. "Tell them to prepare for the fight of our lives. The Zarkonians think they can conquer us, but they're about to learn what happens when you back humanity into a corner." As the blue marble of Earth grew larger in the viewscreen, Captain Reeves and his crew steeled themselves for the challenges ahead. The battle for Earth's survival was about to begin, and humanity would need every ounce of its legendary ingenuity, resilience, and determination to prevail. Humanity's response and preparation. The return of the Horizon to Earth marked the beginning of a new era for humanity. As Captain Rees and his crew touched down, they were met not with the jubilant crowds that had seen them off, but with grim-faced military personnel and world leaders anxiously awaiting news of their encounter. In the days that followed, governments around the world scrambled to respond to the Zirconian threat. The United Nations convened an emergency session, and for the first time in history, petty differences were set aside in the face of a common enemy. The message was clear: unite or perish. Dr. Lyra Chen found herself at the center of a whirlwind of activity. Her expertise in Zirconian language and culture made her invaluable to Earth's defense efforts. She worked tirelessly, analyzing every scrap of data they had gathered during their brief encounter with the aliens. Their technology is decades, maybe centuries ahead of ours, she explained to a room full of military brass and scientific experts. But they underestimate us. They see us as primitive, and that's an advantage we can exploit. Meanwhile, Captain Rees was promoted to Admiral and given command of Earth's newly formed United Defense Fleet. His first order of business was to oversee the rapid militarization of Earth's space capabilities. "We don't have time to match them ship for ship," Rees addressed his senior staff. "We need to think outside the box. Humanity's greatest strength has always been our ability to innovate in the face of overwhelming odds." And innovate they did. All around the globe, scientists and engineers worked around the clock to develop new technologies that could give Earth a fighting chance. Factories were retooled, economies restructured, and resources poured into the war effort on a scale never before seen in human history. One of the most promising developments came from an unlikely source. Dr. Aisha Patel, a brilliant but eccentric physicist, had been working on experimental shield technology before the Zirconian threat emerged. Her research, once considered too theoretical to be practical, now became the cornerstone of Earth's defensive strategy. The Zirconians rely heavily on energy weapons, Dr. Patel explained, her eyes shining with excitement despite the dark circles that betrayed her lack of sleep. "My shields can absorb and redirect that energy, potentially turning their own firepower against them." As Dr. Patel and her team worked to scale up the shield technology for use on starships and planetary defense systems, other breakthroughs emerged. Advances in AI and quantum computing allow for the development of more sophisticated battle simulations and predictive algorithms. Nanotechnology provided new materials that were stronger and lighter than anything previously imagined. But perhaps the most significant advantage came from an unexpected quarter. Ensign Jack Torres, whose quick thinking had saved the first contact team on the Zirconian ship, turned out to have a gift for understanding alien technology. Working with a team of engineers, he began to reverse engineer some of the Zirconian systems they had observed. "Their tech is amazing," Torres explained to Admiral Rees during a briefing, "but it's also incredibly complex. They sacrificed simplicity for power. If we can disrupt their systems, even temporarily, it could give us the edge we need." As the months passed, Earth's cities were transformed. Massive shield generators rose alongside skyscrapers, and space elevators stretched into the sky, allowing for the rapid deployment of ships and resources to orbital shipyards. The Moon and Mars, once distant goals for human colonization, became bustling centers of military production and research. But it wasn't just technology that was changing. The people of Earth, faced with an existential threat, found reserves of strength and unity they never knew they possessed. Old enemies became allies, pooling resources and knowledge in the face of annihilation. A new sense of global identity emerged, with humans increasingly seeing themselves as citizens of Earth first, individual nations second. Admiral Rees stood on the bridge of the UDF Defiant, the first of Earth's new warships built to face the Zirconian threat. As he looked out at the fleet assembling in Earth orbit, he felt a mix of pride and apprehension. They had accomplished so much in so little time, but would it be enough? Dr. Chen joined him at the view screen, her face reflecting the same mix of emotions. "It's incredible, isn't it?" she said softly. "A year ago, we were squabbling over borders and resources. Now look at us." Reese nodded, a hint of a smile touching his lips. Humanity at its best, united, determined, unstoppable. But their moment of reflection was interrupted by a priority alert. Long-range sensors had detected movement at the edge of the solar system. The Zarkonian invasion fleet had arrived. "All hands to battle stations," Reeves ordered, his voice calm but filled with resolve. "This is not a drill. I repeat, this is not a drill." As klaxons blared throughout the ship and across the entire defense network, humans everywhere steeled themselves for the fight to come. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and facing an enemy with technology far beyond their own. But they had one thing the Zarkonians didn't: the unbreakable human spirit. In labs and factories across the globe, last-minute adjustments were made to weapons and defenses. Dr. Patel's team worked feverishly to bring the planetary shield network online, while Dr. Chen coordinated with linguistic AI to exploit any weaknesses in Zarkonian communication systems. On Mars, a secret weapon was being prepared. Under the guidance of Ensign Taurus, a team had developed a virus designed to infiltrate and disrupt Zarkonian ship systems. It was a desperate gambit, but one that could turn the tide if successful. As the Zarkonian fleet drew closer, Admiral Reeves addressed the combined forces of humanity. His words were broadcast to every ship, every bunker, every home still standing on Earth. "Men and women of Earth," he began, his voice steady and strong. "The hour of our greatest challenge is upon us. The enemy thought to catch us unprepared, to crush us before we could resist. But they don't know humanity. They don't understand the strength we find in unity, the ingenuity we discover in desperation." He paused, looking around at the determined faces of his crew. "We may be outnumbered, but we are not outmatched. Every ship in our fleet, every weapon in our arsenal, carries with it the hopes and dreams of billions. We fight not just for our own survival, but for the right of our children and our children's children to reach for the stars." Across the fleet, humans of all nations and backgrounds listened, drawing strength from his words. On Earth, in hardened bunkers and makeshift shelters, civilians huddled around screens, holding on to hope. "The Zarkonians think they're invincible," Reese continued, his voice rising with passion. "Today, we prove them wrong. Today, we show them and the entire galaxy what it means to be human. We may not have asked for this fight, but by all that we hold dear, we will finish it." A chorus of cheers erupted across the communications network. On the Defiance Bridge, Dr. Chen felt a surge of pride and determination. They had prepared as best they could. Now it was time to face their destiny. As the first Zarkonian ships entered weapons range, Admiral Reeves gave the order that would echo through history. "All ships engage the enemy. For Earth and all humanity, attack." The battle for Earth's survival had begun. Against impossible odds, humanity would fight with everything they had, that indomitable spirit burning brighter than any star in the galaxy. The battle begins. The void of space erupted into a dazzling spectacle of destruction as the human and Zarkonian fleets clashed. Energy beams lanced across the darkness, while swarms of missiles left fiery trails in their wake. The battle for Earth had begun, and the very fate of humanity hung in the balance. Admiral Marcus Reeves stood at the helm of the UDF Defiant, his eyes fixed on the tactical display as he coordinated humanity's defense. The Zarkonian ships vastly outnumbered the human fleet, their sleek, biomechanical vessels moving with an alien grace that belied their deadly purpose. "Concentrate fire on their lead ships," Reeves ordered, his voice steady despite the chaos unfolding around him. "Let's see how Dr. Patel's shields hold up." As if in answer to his words, a massive Zarkonian cruiser unleashed a barrage of energy weapons against the Defiant. For a heart-stopping moment, it seemed as though the human flagship would be vaporized. But then, miraculously, the energy dissipated across a shimmering barrier of light. shields holding at 92%, Admiral, the tactical officer reported, a note of surprised joy in her voice. Dr. Patel's technology works. A brief cheer went up on the bridge, but Rees knew they couldn't celebrate yet. The battle had only just begun, and the Zarkonians still held a significant advantage. Meanwhile, on the surface of Mars, Ensign Jack Torres and his team worked feverishly to deploy their secret weapon. The young officer's fingers flew across holographic interfaces as he made last-minute adjustments to the virus they had designed to infiltrate Zarkonian systems. "This has to work," Torres muttered to himself, acutely aware of the responsibility resting on his shoulders. With a final deep breath, he initiated the program. Virus deployed. Now we wait. Back in Earth orbit, Dr. Lara Chen coordinated with AI systems to analyze Zarkonian communications. Her expertise in xenolinguistics proved crucial as she worked to decrypt enemy transmissions and provide real-time intelligence to the fleet. "Admiral," Chen's voice crackled over the comm, "we're picking up increased chatter from the Zarkonian flagship. They seem confused by our resistance." Reeves allowed himself a grim smile. "Good. Let's keep them off balance. All ships, execute maneuver Theta 3. The human fleet moved in perfect synchronization, a testament to countless hours of drills and simulations. Ships broke formation, regrouping into smaller, more agile units that darted between the lumbering Zarkonian vessels. It was a tactic born of necessity. Humanity couldn't match the aliens in firepower, but they could outmaneuver them. As the battle raged on, the first signs of Torres virus began to manifest. Zarkonian ships suddenly lost power, their weapons going dark at crucial moments. Others veered off course, colliding with their allies in a spectacular display of destruction. "It's working," Torres exclaimed, watching the battle unfold from his command center on Mars. "The virus is disrupting their systems." But the Zarkonians were quick to adapt. Within minutes, they had isolated the affected ships and begun to implement countermeasures. The virus bought humanity precious time, but it wasn't enough to turn the tide completely. The battle shifted as the Zarkonians, realizing that taking Earth wouldn't be as easy as they had anticipated, changed tactics. A group of their ships broke away from the main fleet, making a beeline for Earth's atmosphere. "They're going for a ground assault," Rees realized with horror. "All available ships, intercept those cruisers. We can't let them reach the surface." In cities across the globe, civilians huddled in shelters, watching the battle unfold on emergency broadcasts. The sight of alien ships descending from the heavens, fiery contrails, marking their passage through the atmosphere, was both terrifying and awe-inspiring. But humanity wasn't defenseless. The planetary shield network, the product of Dr. Aisha Patel's tireless work, sprang to life. A shimmering dome of energy enveloped the Earth, repelling the first wave of Zarkonian ships. In her control center beneath the Himalayas, Dr. Patel worked frantically to maintain the shields. "We're holding," she reported, her voice strained with effort, "but I don't know for how long. The energy requirements are astronomical." As if to punctuate her words, a particularly large Zarkonian ship focused its fire on a single point in the shield. For a moment, the barrier held. Then, with a sound like shattering glass amplified 1,000-fold, a section of the shield collapsed. "Breach in Sector 7, Patel shouted. "They're coming through." On the ground, the battle took on a new dimension. Zarkonian dropships descended on major cities, disgorging alien troops onto Earth's soil. The invaders were met with fierce resistance as human military forces, bolstered by hastily armed civilians, fought to protect their homes. In the skies above New York, a squadron of human fighters engaged in a dogfight with Zarkonian assault craft. Captain Maria Vasquez, ace pilot of the 33rd Aerial Defense Wing, barrel-rolled her jet to avoid enemy fire. "These bastards are quick," she growled over the comm, "but they don't know how to fight dirty." "All right, Hawkeyes, let's show them how we do things downtown." With a series of daring maneuvers, Vasquez and her squad managed to down several Zarkonian ships, sending them crashing into the Hudson River. But for every alien craft they destroyed, 2 more seemed to take its place. Back in orbit, Admiral Rees and the UDF, Defiant, found themselves in the thick of the fighting. The human flagship had taken heavy damage, its once pristine hull now scarred and blackened. "Admiral," his XO reported grimly, "we've lost 1/3 of the fleet. The Zarkonians are pushing towards the lunar shipyards. If they take those out, we'll lose our ability to repair and rearm." Rees nodded, his mind racing as he considered their options. They were outgunned and rapidly being overwhelmed, but he refused to give up. Humanity had come too far, sacrificed too much, to falter now. "Dr. Chen," he called out, "any weakness in their strategy? Anything we can exploit?" Laura Chen, her face illuminated by the glow of holographic displays, shook her head in frustration. "They're adapting too quickly. Every time we find an advantage, they counter it. It's like they're learning from us." Suddenly, an idea struck Rees. "Learning from us," he repeated softly. Then, with renewed energy, "That's it. They're using our tactics against us. But what if we do something completely unexpected, something so crazy no logical species would even consider it?" He turned to his tactical officer. "Prep all of our remaining nukes. We're going to use them to create an EMP burst right in the middle of their fleet." The officer's eyes widened in shock. "Sir, at that range, we'll be caught in the blast too. We'll lose all our systems." "Exactly," Rees nodded grimly. "But we've drilled for this. Our ships can reboot faster than theirs. It's a gamble, but it might be our only shot." As the orders went out, the human fleet began to adjust its formation. Ships that had been fighting defensively suddenly surged forward, as if making a suicidal charge into the heart of the Zarkonian armada. The aliens, caught off guard by this apparent act of desperation, faltered in their advance. It was the opening Rees had been waiting for. "All ships, cut power and deploy EMPs. Now." For a brief moment, space itself seemed to hold its breath. Then, in a blinding flash of light, dozens of nuclear devices detonated simultaneously. The electromagnetic pulse washed over both fleets, instantly frying every electronic system in its path. In the eerie silence that followed, both human and Zarkonian ships drifted powerless in space. But true to Rees' prediction, the human vessels began to flicker back to life first, their crews having drilled for this very scenario. "All ships, restore power and engage at will," Rees ordered as the Defiance systems came back online. "Hit them hard before they can recover." The battle had reached its tipping point. As the human fleet sprang back to life, they found themselves with a momentary but crucial advantage over their still rebooting adversaries. It was a chance to turn the tide, to prove that humanity's ingenuity and determination could overcome even the most advanced alien technology. But even as hope began to surge through the human forces, a new threat loomed on the horizon. The Zarkonian Supreme Commander, enraged by the unexpected resistance, had decided to enter the fray personally. His massive flagship, dwarfing even the largest human vessels, emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the battlefield. The final phase of the battle for Earth was about to begin, and the fate of humanity hung in the balance. Turning the tide, the arrival of the Zarkonian Supreme Commander's flagship cast a shadow of the temporary advantage humanity had gained. The massive vessel, easily twice the size of Earth's largest warship, loomed ominously at the edge of the battlefield. Its very presence seemed to reinvigorate the Zarkonian forces, who began to recover from the EMP attack with renewed determination. Admiral Marcus Rees stared at the tactical display, his mind racing. They had bought themselves some time with their audacious maneuver, but the tide could still turn against them at any moment. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "the Zarkonian flagship is powering up its main weapon. Energy readings are off the charts." Rees gritted his teeth. "All ships, evasive maneuvers. Dr. Patel, we need those shields at maximum strength. As if in response to his words, a beam of blinding energy lanced out from the Zarkonian flagship, cutting through space like a scythe. Several human ships, caught in its path, simply ceased to exist, vaporized in an instant. But even as despair threatened to overtake the human forces, a voice crackled over the comm system. "This is Dr. Lyra Chen. Admiral, I think I found something." Chen's face appeared on the main view screen, her eyes alight with excitement despite the chaos around her. "I've been analyzing the Zarkonian communications, and I've noticed a pattern. Their ships aren't just communicating, they're linked in a complex neural network. It's how they coordinate so effectively." Reese leaned forward, hope kindling in his chest. "And how does that help us, Doctor?" "If we can disrupt that network," Chen explained rapidly, "we might be able to throw their entire fleet into disarray. But we'd need to get a transmitter close to their flagship, right into the heart of their defenses." The Admiral's mind raced, considering the possibilities. It was a long shot, but they were running out of options. "Ensign Taurus," he called out, "how quickly can you modify that virus of yours to target their neural network?" On Mars, Jack Taurus' fingers flew over his console. "Give me 10 minutes, Admiral. I'll have it ready." "You've got 5, Reeves replied grimly. "Because that's about how long we have before that flagship obliterates us." As Taurus worked feverishly to modify the virus, Reeves formulated a desperate plan. They would need a small, fast ship to penetrate the Zarkonian defenses and deliver the virus directly to the flagship. It was practically a suicide mission. "I'll do it," a voice spoke up. Reeves turned to see Captain Maria Vasquez, who had just docked her fighter aboard the Defiant after the brutal aerial battle over New York. Her face was streaked with soot and sweat, but her eyes burned with determination. "Captain, you've already been through hell today," Reeves began, but Vasquez cut him off. "With all due respect, sir, that's exactly why it should be me. I know I can get that ship through their defenses. Just give me the fastest bird you've got." Reeves hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Godspeed, Captain. The fate of humanity is in your hands." As Vasquez prepared for her mission, the battle continued to rage across the solar system. On Earth, human forces fought desperately to repel the Zarkonian ground invasion. Cities burned, but the human spirit remained unbroken. In the ruins of London, a group of civilians, led by a former rugby player named Oliver Bennett, had managed to capture a downed Zarkonian ship. Bennett, his broad shoulders straining as he hefted an alien weapon, rallied his makeshift militia. "They might have fancy tech," he shouted over the sound of distant explosions, "but they don't know the first thing about street fighting. Let's show these alien bastards why you don't mess with Earth." Similar scenes played out across the globe as humanity, backed into a corner, fought with a ferocity that caught the Zarkonians off guard. The aliens had expected an easy conquest, but instead found themselves embroiled in a brutal, planet-wide guerrilla war. Back in space, Captain Vasquez launched in her modified fighter, the virus payload securely installed. As she accelerated towards the Zarkonian lines, the human fleet rallied to provide cover, drawing enemy fire away from her approach vector. "Approaching target," Vasquez reported, her voice tense but controlled. "These bastards are throwing everything they've got at me." Her fighter danced through space, avoiding energy beams and missile salvos with a grace that seemed to defy physics. But the Zarkonians were adapting, their shots coming closer with each passing second. Just as it seemed Vasquez would make it through, a glancing hit sent her fighter into a spin. Alarms blared in her cockpit as systems failed. "I'm hit," she called out, fighting to regain control. "But I'm not out of this fight yet." With a series of masterful maneuvers, Vasquez managed to stabilize her craft. She was close now, so close to the flagship she could see individual weapon emplacements on its hull. But her fighter was falling apart around her, and Zarkonian point defense systems were locking on. In that moment, Captain Maria Vasquez made a decision that would echo through history. "Admiral," she said, her voice calm despite the circumstances, "I don't think I can deliver the payload and make it back, so I'm taking this bird all the way in." Before Rees could respond, Vasquez cut her comm and poured every last ounce of power into her engines. Her fighter, now more a missile than a spacecraft, streaked towards the Zarkonian flagship. The point defense systems opened fire, peppering her ship with hits. But through skill or sheer luck, Vasquez's fighter remained largely intact as it crashed through the flagship's outer defenses and impacted against its hull. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, like a virus spreading through a body, the Zarkonian neural network began to collapse. Ship after ship lost coordination, their movements becoming erratic and confused. "It's working," Dr. Chen exclaimed, watching the Zarkonian fleet's formation crumble. "Their entire command structure is falling apart." Admiral Reeves allowed himself a moment of silent tribute to Captain Vasquez's sacrifice before seizing the opportunity she had given them. "All ships, press the attack. Concentrate fire on their flagship." The human fleet surged forward, their weapons finding targets with unerring accuracy as the Zarkonian defenses faltered. On Earth and throughout the solar system, the invaders suddenly found themselves without coherent leadership or coordination. In the skies above Paris, a squadron of human fighters, led by Vasquez's wingman Lieutenant Javier Rodriguez, tore through the now disorganized Zarkonian air forces. "This is for you, Captain," Rodriguez muttered as he lined up a shot on an alien dropship, blasting out of the sky. On the ground, Oliver Bennett and his militia in London seized the moment, launching a counterattack that drove the confused Zarkonian ground forces back. Similar scenes played out in cities and battlefields across the globe as humanity began to turn the tide. Back in space, the Zarkonian flagship was taking heavy fire. Its once impenetrable defenses were failing, and escape pods began launching from its hull as the alien crew abandoned ship. "Sir," Ree's tactical officer reported, a note of awe in her voice, "the Zarkonian Supreme Commander, he's surrendering." A stunned silence fell over the Defiance bridge, broken only by the distant sounds of battle. They had done it. Against all odds, humanity had prevailed. But even as the first stirrings of victory began to spread through the human forces, Admiral Rees knew their trials were far from over. The Zarkonians had been defeated, but at a terrible cost. Earth lay in ruins, billions were dead or displaced, and the scars of this war would take generations to heal. Yet as he looked out at the battered but unbroken human fleet, at the reports coming in from across the solar system of everyday heroes who had risen to the occasion, Rees felt a surge of pride and hope. Humanity had faced its greatest challenge and emerged stronger for it. The war was over, but the real work of rebuilding, of forging a new future for humanity among the stars, was just beginning. And as the fires of battle began to fade, replaced by the light of a new dawn, Marcus Rees knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, humanity would face them together, their indomitable spirit burning brighter than ever before, victory and aftermath. The days following the Zarkonian surrender were a blur of activity as humanity grappled with the enormity of what had transpired. The alien threat had been neutralized, but the cost had been staggering. Cities lay in ruins, millions were dead or missing, and the very fabric of human civilization had been stretched to its breaking point. Yet even in the face of such devastation, the human spirit remained unbroken. As the dust settled and the full scope of their victory became clear, a new sense of purpose began to take hold. Humanity had not merely survived, they had proven themselves on a galactic stage. Admiral Marcus Rees stood before the United Nations General Assembly, his uniform crisp despite the wariness evident in his eyes. The chamber was packed, with representatives from every nation on Earth in attendance, along with billions more watching the broadcast around the world and throughout the solar system. "Ladies and gentlemen," Rees began, his voice carrying the weight of recent events, We have emerged from the crucible of war, forged anew. The Zarkonian threat has been defeated, but our greatest challenges and our greatest opportunities lie ahead. He paused, looking out at the sea of faces before him. We are no longer alone in the universe. We have seen the face of an alien civilization, and in doing so, we have seen ourselves more clearly. The petty differences that once divided us pale in comparison to the vastness of the cosmos and the challenges it presents. As Reeves spoke, scenes from around the globe played on screens behind him. In the ruins of Tokyo, Japanese and Korean workers labored side by side to clear rubble and begin reconstruction. In what was once a disputed Kashmir region, Indian and Pakistani soldiers worked together to distribute aid to refugees. The war had not erased centuries of conflict, but it had provided a new perspective, a common cause that transcended old enmities. We have paid a terrible price for this victory, Reeves continued, his voice thick with emotion. But in our darkest hour, we discovered strengths we never knew we possessed. We must now harness that same spirit, that same unity and determination, to rebuild our world and chart a new course for our species. In orbit above Earth, the remnants of the human fleet had been joined by ships from Mars and the outer colonies. Among them floated the captured Zarkonian vessels, including the massive flagship that had once seemed so invincible. Teams of scientists and engineers, led by Dr. Usha Patel and Ensign Jack Torres, worked tirelessly to unlock the secrets of alien technology. The knowledge we have gained, Reeves explained, will revolutionize every aspect of our civilization. From energy production to medicine, from space travel to environmental restoration, we stand on the brink of a new golden age. But with this power comes great responsibility. He turned to address the Zarkonian ambassadors, who sat uncomfortably under the watchful eyes of human security forces. To our former enemies, I say this: we do not seek revenge. Justice will be served for the crimes committed against our people, but we also extend a hand of peace. There is much we can learn from each other if you are willing to approach us as equals rather than conquerors. The Zarkonian representatives shifted uneasily, still coming to terms with their defeat at the hands of a species they had considered primitive. But there was also a glimmer of something else in their eyes, a newfound respect, perhaps even admiration, for the beings who had so thoroughly upended their worldview. As Reeves concluded his speech, he introduced the true heroes of the war. Dr. Lara Chen, whose linguistic brilliance had been crucial in understanding and ultimately defeating the Zarkonians, stepped forward to thunderous applause. Oliver Bennett, the former rugby player who had led the resistance in London, stood tall despite his injuries, a symbol of the everyday courage that had turned the tide. And finally, a holographic image appeared, showing Captain Maria Vasquez in her fighter moments before her fateful collision with the Zarkonian flagship. "Let us never forget," Reeves said solemnly, "those who made the ultimate sacrifice to secure our future. Captain Vasquez and countless others like her are the true foundation upon which we will build our new world." As the assembly rose in a standing ovation, the scene shifted to various locations around the globe. In the rebuilt laboratories of the SETI Institute, Dr. Chen worked with a team of human and Zarkonian scientists, their differences set aside in the pursuit of knowledge. The alien language that had once been a barrier now served as a bridge between their cultures. On Mars, Ensign Torres led a joint human-Zarkonian engineering team in the construction of a new type of spacecraft, one that combined the best of both species' technologies. The Red Planet, once the front line of human expansion, was becoming a symbol of interspecies cooperation. Back on Earth, in the heart of New York City, a memorial was unveiled. A statue of Captain Vasquez stood at its center, her gaze fixed on the stars. Around the base, the names of every person lost in the war were etched in shimmering holographic text, a reminder of the cost of their victory and the responsibility they bore to honor that sacrifice. Admiral Reeves, now serving as the head of Earth's new Interstellar Relations Council, stood before the memorial. Beside him, Dr. Patel adjusted the controls of a device that hummed with barely contained energy. "Are you sure about this, Marcus?" Patel asked, a hint of concern in her voice. Reeves nodded, a slight smile on his weathered face. "It's time, Aisha. We've kept it under wraps long enough. The world needs to know, the galaxy needs to know, what we're capable of." With a nod from Reeves, Patel activated the device. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, with a sound like rushing wind, a shimmering portal opened in the air before them. Through it, they could see the surface of an alien world, its twin suns setting over a landscape of crystalline forests. "Ladies and gentlemen," Reeves announced to the stunned crowd gathered around the memorial, "I give you the future. With the Alcubierre Patel trans-dimensional gateway, the stars are no longer out of reach. The gateway to the cosmos is open, and humanity stands ready to take its place among the galactic community." As news of the breakthrough spread, a wave of excitement and optimism swept across the globe. The war had brought humanity to the brink of extinction, but in doing so, it had united them as never before. Now, with the galaxy quite literally at their doorstep, the human race looked to the future with hope and determination.